Welcome to this explainer. I recently stumbled onto this incredible piece of history that sits right at the intersection of money, power, and human nature. And honestly, it perfectly diagnoses our modern economic anxieties. Usually, when we think about the origins of economic thought, our minds just automatically go to familiar historical figures from the last couple of centuries, right? But there is this quieter, incredibly powerful truth hiding in the medieval world that history classes almost never cover.
So picture this for a second. What happens when a civilization gets rich way faster than it gets wise? Imagine an economy facing booming commerce, skyrocketing inequality, and this growing detachment of wealth from actual meaning. It's an economy that is thriving on the outside, but kind of decaying on the inside. You've got bustling markets, expanding trade routes, and wealth literally transforming the landscape faster than anyone can fully comprehend.
And here is the ultimate rug pull. You might look at these factors, runaway wealth, rampant speculation, institutional distrust, and think, okay, yeah, that describes the 2020s perfectly. But we are actually looking at the highly sophisticated, wealthy Islamic world around the year 1100 CE. At a time when Europe was fragmented, still crawling out of the early Middle Ages, cities like Baghdad, Damascus, and Cairo were absolute financial and intellectual powerhouses. Traders in Baghdad were literally cashing the equivalent of complex paper checks while much of the rest of the world was still bartering.
Okay, let's dive right into this and look at Abu Hamid al-Ghazali. Born in Persia in 1058, he was a scholar, philosopher, and jurist who rose to hold one of the absolute most prestigious teaching positions in the entire Islamic world. But he refused to just accept the status quo. It is honestly awe-inspiring that he was analyzing money's psychological and spiritual impact centuries before the economists we usually study in school, like Adam Smith or Karl Marx. He looked around and saw that his society was utterly obsessed with money, but completely drifting away from meaning.
Section 1. Money is just a mirror, a facilitator of exchange. To really grasp his systemic insights, we first need to understand how al-Ghazali fundamentally defined the whole concept of currency.
He defined money not as something to be worshipped, hoarded, or used as some kind of status symbol, but merely as a mirror. Think about it. A mirror has zero value on its own, right? Its worth comes entirely from what it reflects. While money is the exact same way, it is a facilitator of exchange that only holds power based on what it allows people to build together. Its power isn't in the shiny gold or silver itself, but in the human cooperation it enables.
Which brings us to Section 2, the danger of dead money and artificial scarcity. Let's look at how this definition of money builds into a really powerful critique of wealth accumulation and market manipulation.
Al-Ghazali argued that hoarding wealth creates artificial scarcity. To him, wealth locked away in chests or hidden in courtyards wasn't just useless, it was actively socially destructive. Idle wealth doesn't circulate to feed workers or fund trade. By strangling economic life and distorting prices, hoarding acts exactly like freezing a body's bloodstream. It's a systemic breakdown where circulation is completely blocked, markets break down, and ultimately, people suffer.
He viewed speculative behavior, merchants who manipulated prices, created artificial shortages, or exploited crises, not as clever business, but as a moral contagion. Now, he wasn't anti-capitalist at all. He actually loved bustling markets and strongly believed in trade. But he saw that exploiting a crisis for a quick buck wasn't business, it was corruption. He understood that manipulating information or prices destroys the crucial trust needed for markets to function. And without that trust, the entire economy just collapses right behind it.
So here is the crucial point in his practical logic. Societies grow strong when people contribute through dignified labor, and they get weak when people exploit the system through unearned wealth. Earning money through actual effort builds character, whereas wealth accumulated through market manipulation literally rots it. And this isn't just some moralizing statement, it is highly practical. He understood that when merchants hold back information or rig the scales, the costs for everyone else skyrocket. It's an incredible insight, beautifully laid out without a single modern textbook.
But al-Ghazali didn't just blame individual merchants for economic decay. This leads us to Section 3, Steel Trust, through state intervention. He delivered one of the earliest, most scathing critiques of medieval rulers who diluted gold or silver coins just to stretch their budgets. He called this stealth inflation exactly what it is, outright theft that overwhelmingly punishes the poor. By altering a coin's purity, a ruler wasn't being clever with monetary policy. They were stealing from their own people in slow motion, completely destabilizing the financial system from the top down. It is honestly revelatory how incredibly modern this 11th century critique sounds today.
Notice the chain reaction of corruption playing out here. It radiates downward like a poison.
When the ruler at the top cheats their people through currency debasement, merchants immediately feel justified in cheating their customers. Eventually, individuals no longer see any reason to act responsibly, and the invisible glue of societal trust just completely dissolves.
He accurately predicted that manipulating currency leads populations to eventually flee their local coin entirely, seeking out stronger foreign currencies. And this is a dynamic we've seen play out century after century, from Weimar Germany in the 1920s to Zimbabwe, Venezuela, modern-day Argentina, and even present-day inflation debates. It happens every single time people stop believing the promises behind their money. Because ultimately, money is a belief system.
Which brings us to our final part, Section 4, a modern mirror and echoes of the past. Let's look at why this 11th century diagnostic report feels so uncomfortably relevant to our current age. It's fascinating, really, how his critique of medieval hoarding so perfectly mirrors today's debates about billionaires and offshore accounts. Everywhere we look today, from shadow banking to wealth inequality, we see the exact same underlying human behaviors that Al-Ghazali warned about. His warnings on speculation, they echo our modern anxieties over crypto volatility and housing crises perfectly. The technology might be radically different today, but the human drivers, fear, greed, and the search for shortcuts are absolutely identical.
He understood something that modern economists often struggle to admit. Financial collapse isn't just a math problem where the numbers suddenly stop adding up. Actually, scratch that. It's more like a systemic failure that happens when the moral framework disintegrates and incentives start rewarding all the wrong behaviors. You simply cannot fix an economy without fixing the incentives that shape human behavior in the first place.
Where justice is lost, prosperity cannot remain. A selfish society eventually collapses under its own weight, ensuring that everyone pays the price when wealth becomes completely detached from social responsibility. When the relentless pursuit of profit ignores the welfare of the community, the entire system becomes brittle. It is a fundamental survival principle. Civilizations rise when people understand balance, and they fall when that balance snaps.
So, taking a hard look at our own global economy today, we have to ask ourselves a pretty uncomfortable question. If money truly is a mirror, what exactly does our modern economy reflect about our morality? Thank you for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning the systems around you, and never forget the lessons history has already left for us.